Welcome. The raging debate on the Malegaon blast has taken the focus away from the other recent set of blasts and the other arrests, the so-called Indian Mujahideen phenomenon, where a fascinating process is now unfolding away from the media gaze, here in Bombay, where the police had arrested 20 members of the Indian Mujahideen. Many of these Indian Mujahideen members, in fact more than half, are expressing remorse and want to turn approver. Here's a reminder before we get to that of the arrests made by the Mumbai police. The arrests were made from Mumbai, Pune, Mangalore and Uttar Pradesh. The police claim to have picked up not just the co-founders of the Indian Mujahideen, but also the men who drafted and sent the notorious Indian Mujahideen emails, the so-called media cell of the group, and also even men who planted the bombs in other cases, like the as yet unsolved Hyderabad blast case. This U-turn by many of the accused here is not surprising. In fact, in many cases, it's done as an act of self-preservation. But regardless of the reasons, whether it's genuine remorse, strategic remorse, or altered perceptions, the need to turn approver has seen them share in detail their role and their convictions. We have had access to the accounts of 3 key Indian Mujahideen men, each of whom comes from a different background. These accounts are not just important for the law, but also to understand the root causes of why young, educated men are being driven to commit or participate in such terrible acts. Let's begin with the account of Mansoor Pirbhoy. Now, just to remind you, Mansoor Pirbhoy is the 31-year-old software engineer from Pune, who is, in fact, supposed to be the head of the Indian Mujahideen's media cell. He's accused of drafting and sending 3 of the terror emails. Well, Mansoor was like any other young, successful techie growing up in cosmopolitan Pune until the Gujarat riots. Even then, he says he harbored anger, but it remained within, until he says he met a man called Arif 2 years ago. Mansoor says he was radicalized by Arif Sheikh, who he met at the Quran Foundation in Pune. He says Arif, by the way, is just to remind you, was the one charged with making bomb circuits and was recruited by Riaz Bhatkal, who's one of the masterminds of Indian Mujahideen. Mansoor says the group was aware at times of other similar groups and at other times not. And they began to talk a little at first and then more and more about doing something on the Gujarat problem. In June 2008, Mansoor visited Mumbai 4 times to look for wireless networks which belonged to careless users. And then in July of the 26th, they went to Mumbai with 2 laptops. One to send mail, the other was used as backup. Well, the rest really is fairly well known, but just to quickly go over it, they hacked Ken Harewood's wireless network, sent emails warning of the Ahmedabad blast. They also sent an email in August from Mumbai's Khalsa College to free blame from Mufti Abu Bashir, as Mansoor put it, who's one of the main accused in the Ahmedabad blast. That mail said that whatever the Gujarat police have bragged about Mufti Abu Bashir and the others who were accused is a big lie. And then, of course, in September of this year, an email from Mumbai's ghetto, the Cheetah camp, just an overall brag, 9 of the most powerful bombs, inshallah, that are almost going to stop the heart of India from beating. In Mansoor's case, the police know of his guilt not just because of his testimony, but also because they claim to have his laptops on which he drafted the mail. In fact, they say such was his confidence that he'd saved the draft and the logo of the Indian Mujahideen, not expecting to be caught. Or so at least they'd been told by Riaz Bhatkal and his men, which is why now that Mansoor is in jail and Riaz is at large, it has thrown his convictions into turmoil. Mansoor says that Riaz and his group thrive on the kind of public emotion that's created by situations like Gujarat. They thrive on those kinds of emotions that people like him have felt. He says, I may have jumped in for the wrong reasons. He says, my emotional weakness can't be used to say that there is smoke without fire. He says that we realize taking life is painful, but part of our belief system is that war begets war. He says there's no personal gain involved at all for any of us. And he says in their ideology, oppression is worse than death. And then he also says that people should think twice before attacking Muslims in the future. So that's an account, many ways, of the kind of turmoil that Mansoor is now confronting. When he was first arrested, his family was stunned. His father, Asghar Peerboy, a businessman in Pune, reacted as most parents did, with shock and denial when he first came out and spoke to journalists at his home in Pune's camp area. But now, after more than one meeting with Mansoor, here in Bombay, in the custody of the crime branch, they have come to terms with the fact that he was involved. Mansoor acknowledges this and says that it's not been easy to explain to them the reasons that led him to become part of an act of terror, or even his subsequent reversal now. He says, and he gets very emotional when he talks about this, he says, I can't explain it to them. He says, I have no control over my parents. He says, it's a very personal thing for us. It's a matter of conviction.